Welcome to the Hockey Writers Union Junction, a weekly show from our Columbus Blue Jackets insider, Mark Scheig, bringing you the latest news, rumors, trades, player grades, game results, and much more. From training camp to the playoffs, from draft day to the trade deadline, he covers everything that happens with the Jackets. So get ready. It's time for another get-together at Union Junction.
All hockey fans, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're turning us on. Welcome to Union Junction, Thursday, March 3rd, 2022. Only a couple of weeks till the trade deadline. Nick, we got plenty to talk about here, but before we get into that, have you read the Hockey Writers Morning Skate?
I read it every day. Religiously is what I would say.
Religiously, that's really good. I need to be as religious as you then when it comes to it.
Mark, are you slacking? Have you even subscribed?
Oh, no, listen. I subscribe. I very much subscribe.
All right.
I do read it every day, but maybe I need to bump it up to like 2 or 3 times a day so I can get up toward your level, Nick.
Yeah. Well, I think of the two of us, if you were to say who was the more knowledgeable in hockey and the Blue Jackets, I don't think it's a toss-up.
But the fact that you're reading the Morning Skate, though, makes you very knowledgeable. And seriously, though, fans, anything that you read out there on our site, you'll have the opportunity to subscribe into the Morning Skate. And it's really, really informative. And sign up for it. Comes into your inbox every morning. Really, really good stories delivered to you Monday through Friday, only at thehockeywriters.com. So make sure you subscribe and tell them that Mark and Nick told you so.
Be sure.
Okay. Now we got the business out of the way. We got a lot to talk about. So let's set the show up. You know, there's some of you that are tuning in for the first time. Welcome. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us. We're going to spend the first half of the show getting caught up on kind of the week that was and some of the storylines going on around the Blue Jackets. And then in part 2, we're going to dedicate that to both Rick Nash coming back to Nationwide Arenas. We're going to have his number 61 go up to the rafters on Saturday night against the Boston Bruins, and then kind of a little bit of a hidden story because of all the Nash talk is former captain Nick Foligno coming back to Nationwide Arena the same day. So we're going to dedicate the second half of the show to that. But right now we have a lot to get to, Nick, and let's just dive right into the last 4 games. They've played 4 games since we've last spoke. They had that game against Florida, had the game in Carolina, then the games against Pittsburgh, and then on Tuesday night against the New Jersey Devils. 4 games. It ended up going 2-2. And guess what? I got that right. I said that they'd split them. So
nice.
Put that for the record. But
yeah,
what did you learn from those 4 games, Nick?
Honestly, if I would have heard that they would have gone 2-2, one of those games was definitely not one that I would have expected them to sneak away with. I wasn't sure if they had a chance against Florida or Carolina. Carolina was excited they were going to be fired up to get back at them for the Jackets beating them last time. And Florida's just been, they've been, a lightning rod all season, right? They're great. So definitely 2 tough games. I think you and I both picked like Pittsburgh and New Jersey as the teams where they would have really had a shot against them. But, squeaking away with that win in Florida, and that's the other big thing, in Florida, kind of unexpected, and shows that they can really stick it with the big guys if they're firing on all cylinders, which, they had a great performance from JF. Line showed up. That's what they need, and they managed to squeak away with it. It's definitely a storyline we're gonna have to watch moving forward, is if they can maintain a high level of play, because we saw against Carolina they kind of got shut out. But what do you glean from this last week, Mark?
Well, the Florida game, they had JF Berube, like you said. They also were without Zack Werenski, and they made that happen, which was completely just Well, but if you think about it, they played the Florida Panthers twice and got killed in the first two games. So you knew coming in there was a motivation factor that they wanted to say, we're going to come out, we're going to do our very best, we're going to be much better than we were before. You could tell that they invested a lot of their energy into that game because there was a point to prove. So it was real easy to get up for that game. Then Carolina comes along, that pretty much less than 24 hours till the next puck drop, where you have a Carolina team at home that waited 3 days for them. And you got to actually give the Blue Jackets credit. They went 29 minutes scoreless or 0-0 before Jordan Stahl scored the 1-0 goal, and then it kind of fell apart from there. But they tried. They worked their tail off in both those games and got a split. And I think anybody would be really happy to have a split with those two teams on their home ice. And they became the first team to beat Florida, Carolina, and Colorado all in the opponent's home building this year. No other team has been able to say that yet. So
that's pretty impressive.
Kudos to the Blue Jackets for that. End of the Penguins. I mean, they played well against the Penguins until kind of the end there where it got slipped away. It let penalties get in the way. You can't do that for the Penguins. And then there's a gritty game against the Devils. To be able to come out, slow start, turned it on. Oliver Bjorkstrand got his goal. Patrick Laine again on the highlight reel. So yeah, 2-2. They're proving that they can play with anybody if they bring their compete level and if they seem like that they're invested in the game. That's what's being proven here. And then with the Devil game, they didn't have Boqvist or Bean as well. So their top three defensemen were gone. They still were able to find a way to win. So I think we're seeing glimpses of what the future can hold for this team. It's just a matter now of continuously building toward what they want to look like down the road.
And I think the thing that we're going to get into is, they're stringing together a lot of wins here in the last little bit. They seemed like they were really, really out of a playoff spot. The gap was too big. Mark, are these guys are they sneaking into a playoff spot?
Look, you have to say there is a chance. I mean, how big of a chance we can debate, but there's a chance. It's greater than zero, right? So the Capitals have kind of been in a little bit of a swoon as of late. They've got some legitimate goaltending questions they've got to face. Team has struggled as a whole. They can't win on home ice for some reason as of late. They actually have the same amount of wins. It's 28 for the Blue Jackets and 28 for the Capitals, who had that coming in. The end of the day, the only difference is the overtime loss column. It's 9-1 for the Capitals, and the spread is 8 points. Blue Jackets have a game in hand. And so if they can win that game in hand, the spread is only 6, and you still got plenty of games to go. So that means there is a chance. The question is going to be, are they going to do something at the trade deadline to really push the playoffs? So I don't think they're going to do that. They're not in a position where they're aiming for the cup this year. That was really not, I mean, they're always out to go after the cup, don't get me wrong. But for where they're at in the cycle, they're still in a reset. So there could be a hockey deal or two. I think that could come about, because there's players like Max Domi and Jonas Corposalo, and maybe some others that could potentially go if the right deal comes about. And there could be hockey deal where they could bring someone in that can help not only now, but also help in the future. And I think the Blue Jackets will listen for all of that. But to answer your question, yeah, the playoffs are very much in play. And that's because, the Capitals have struggled. They've allowed them in. Anaheim won against Boston late on Tuesday night in regulation. So that kept the Bruins right where they're at. So not just one, but two teams that they theoretically could catch. And there's a total of 4 games left, 1 with the Capitals and 3 with the Bruins that these Blue Jackets have. If they win all those games, then we have to have a real serious conversation. But what about you, Nick? What do you think?
It definitely does change the landscape. I think a little bit, they're really seeing what they've got in a lot of other pieces. So I think is this streak, in my opinion, changes the deadline significantly. JF, he's showing that he's an NHL goaltender. So does that mean that do you ship off Korpisalo 100% now, just take whatever you can get, as opposed to letting him wait or letting him, run out the rest of the year? Do you ship off JF now? There's a lot of players who have started playing a little bit better than they were earlier on in the season. So are they extra trade chips? Mark, my real question for you is, do you think that this streak changes at all their approach to the deadline at all, as opposed to 2 months ago?
No. I get why the question is being asked. And it's a great question on your part. I think a lot of fans are wondering, will they change? I still think the answer is no, Nick. And the reason for that is because the plan has always been this year was going to be a building block. It was a reset year. They're just proving that they're maybe a little farther ahead than they thought that they were in the whole process, which, the question is, have they overachieved? I think that there's an argument that they have overachieved some. I mean, they're in this position, and yet they give up the most shots in the league. And they Merzlikins has actually not played that well. And granted, he's had a couple of wins here recently, but he has not played up to where we think that he is. So they're not going to change it, but they're not going to go from, I guess, a pure seller to, oh, now we're going to buy everything that we see that we can do. I think that ultimately they might look to make a couple of other deals, like I said, to bring in somebody that can help now. But not as a straight buyer. I think they can't go down that road. It's not wise business at the end of the day. They have guys that they need to try to offload. Max Domi is certainly getting a lot of interest in and around the league. If they were really going for the playoffs, I think you'd keep Domi. I don't think I think they'd be wise to see what's out there, to see what they could get for him, knowing that the future is in play here. But yeah, I don't think that the approach really changes. So I have to ask you, do you think that it changes?
I think it might change how they handle certain assets. Like I kind of touched on with, Korpisalo, with kind of Berube's ability to be an actual backup goaltender.
Mm-hmm.
Same with, Roslovic's kind of shown himself a little bit better lately. It definitely complicates things. I'll say that.
So I don't think it complicates anything. I don't think it changes the ultimate plan. I think guys were going to be dealt anyway. But actually, let's transition here. Let's talk about Roslovic, since you brought him up, and Sillinger as well, because I think that there's a conversation to be had about the way the lines have been as of late. Is most of the season, Sillinger was in the top six as a center, maybe on the third line. Roslovic for a time was down on the fourth line. Those roles of late have reversed, seeing Roslovic as the second line center, and we're seeing Sillinger down on the fourth line. What do you make of that situation? Is it warranted? Are we seeing a better Jack Roslovic? Maybe is he reading some of the rumors that are out there? Just diagnose the situation, especially at center ice these days.
Well, I think Roslovic is kind of in a make or break moment right now, because the first half of the season, he was not performing well. You can attribute that to, I don't know, it just changes in year to year, or if it was an issue with Brad Larson not trusting Roslovic as much as Tortorella seemed to, for whatever reason. He did perform better last year, at least from a statistical perspective. Now, he's getting an opportunity to show what he's got in those, that top six, which is what he was brought in to be, was a part of the top six. I think he's just getting a shot to prove what he's got, and he's done all right. The last 10 games, he's got 6.5 in the last 5 games. I can't argue with the results. This is a guy that they were really excited to bring in because he's a Columbus native, and he proved he could be an offensive contributor last year. I think he should be someone that they should keep a little longer. He's still young. He's 25. They still got him under RFA. But it is definitely nice to see production from him, because he's been someone that's been pointed to all year as someone who hasn't been performing up to par. So it is nice to know that he's still got it if they need it from him. What are your thoughts on Roslovic and Sillinger?
Well, the play has certainly warranted the switch. Roslovic's been much more noticeable. Like in watching a game, he's using his speed, he's creating plays, he's being more disruptive. So he's certainly showing that it's there. So I think the question ultimately becomes, is the effort always there with a player like Roslovic? And then, they've been playing him at center. So, is there still a future for him? Do they still see him as a future center option? I know we've talked on previous shows about they have to make a decision with what that could potentially look like. And is he a part of the future plans? Because he's an RFA after this season. And, if there's questions about it, if there's one thing that we know about the Columbus Blue Jackets, we could speculate about a lot of things. But the one thing that we don't ever have to speculate on is if you wear the Blue Jackets logo, you had better bring your best effort every day. And if there's a question about that, the team will ultimately have to decide if that's somebody that they feel like that they need to keep or not. But I am with you on this one. I do feel like that he's still young. There is that Columbus factor in the background. He does have skill. I mean, he's a great skater. He's certainly shown some offensive flashes for sure. Still certainly work to be done on the defensive end and learning some of the nuances of the game. But he still can be very effective. And I feel like that given a little bit more time, maybe work some of the kinks out when it comes to the effort level. Because when he's going, he's somebody that you want on your team. It's just how often are they going to get it? How consistent is he going to be? And then Sillinger, you just kind of wonder, has he hit a wall of sorts? So I'm not sure. I'm not sure we're ready to say that yet, but it's interesting that the points aren't there. But Larson's always been on record to say that even though the points might not always be there for him, he can do other things that keep him in the lineup. Though, who's been the healthy scratch as of late? Hasn't been Sillinger. It's been Chinakhov when Bemstrom came back in. Bemstrom was in against the Devils. So we'll see against the Kings coming up here how that's all going to shake out. But it's notable because Sillinger was up on the top 6 for quite a while, but his play has fallen off, and you just kind of wonder, okay, now, excuse me, what's going to happen with him? I don't suspect that he's going to be a healthy scratch. I mean, if it continues down this road, maybe that comes, but this is more to me about Roslovic stepping up his game and then earning that promotion in the top 6 as opposed to kind of the other way around.
Yeah, Sillinger is an interesting case because he's 18.
Yep.
He's the only one left in the NHL from last year's draft class. If I'm 100% like, that's right? So like, you can't really rag too much on the guy. He's the youngest guy in the NHL. What's important for him at this stage in his career is more so going through those reps, getting those games played, and the rigors of the game will come, because he's shown that he can be a good player. It's just lacing up every night, playing so much, it's a completely different game than juniors. So it naturally, some guys need some time to sink before they can float.
So, Nick, one last topic before we jump into part 2 of the show, and I want to talk about the defense as well. I know we alluded to this earlier. And especially in the game against the Devils, they were without Zack Werenski, Adam Boqvist, and Jake Bean. So, your 6 defensemen ended up being Vladislav Gavrikov, Andrew Peak, Dean Kukin, Gabriel Carlson, and Gavin Bayreuther. And who's the other one? Jay Christensen.
There we go.
First NHL goal. How can we forget about that?
Yeah.
But those are your 6. And they managed to come out and play a decent game against the Devils and end up winning. But talk about the impact of missing those 3 guys. They ran out a 5-forward power play unit against the Devils with Laine or Voracek running the point at different times. But so there's an opportunity for the defenseman to make an impact. But then there's also the impact of those other guys missing. So what do you make of how that's all worked out, especially with that game against the Devils, the state of the defense, things like that?
Well, I think in this instance, we saw something that I've kind of viewed as an issue on the Blue Jackets roster is that there's a bit of a log jam at like 5'6". In my opinion, there's 4 or 5 guys in the organization who can play that 5'6" role. So they've got a lot of depth of that lower pairing kind of style of defenseman. And fortunately, in a game where your depth is tested that much, you do have 6 guys who can still play in the NHL, like at an NHL level. But for the rest of the year, it's got to be tough being in that bottom 6 role. Cause if you have a bad night, like you're out, there's 4 other guys who are capable of playing your minutes as well as you. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think it really did help them in this instance. Like you mentioned, they could fill out an NHL lineup even with that top half of the defensive core missing. But I don't know. It's definitely tough when you're missing those guys. They bring a lot to the ice every night, and they are all noticeable pieces when they are on the ice.
Yep.
So what do you make of the state of things?
Well, the land of opportunity, right? So you're never going to replace Werensky's production. Even Boqvist and his goals, you're really not going to replace that when he's out. And same thing, Bean's had kind of some ups and downs, but still, when your top 3 are out, whoever's in has an opportunity to make their case to stay in the lineup, because those 3 eventually, of course, are going to come back. Other guys have to go. So this is your chance. Do you want to stay? Do you want to play meaningful games? Well, show me. And the one guy that I will call out right now that I feel like has really stepped up as of late from a defensive standpoint, pending UFA at the end of this season, Mr. Dean Kukin. Really, really, really good as of late. Did a great job. Him and Bayreuth or 2 were trying to cover Jack Hughes. That's a very hard thing to do, but he was up to the task. He showed well. Even add a little bit of offense as of late. So he's somebody that, he was even playing with those guys in, and now he has the opportunity to continue to show that he stays in the lineup. He's the one guy, collectively, they've done a really good job to be able to put themselves in a position to win, especially when you have any team take out their top 3 defensemen, you're generally not going to have success. So the fact that the Blue Jackets did that and still were mostly competitive, that's a tip of the cap to the team in order to be ready for that and to still, fight their way to give themselves a chance to win. So with that said, Nick, we got to talk about the morning skate again, because listen, I know we talk about it all the time here, but it's something that our team, we have a dedicated team that puts it together every day. Really, really good stories. So delivered into your inbox. So get up in the morning, make your cup of coffee, get dressed, make your cup of coffee, and then that way just pop up your phone, pop up your computer, whatever device you have. If you sign up for the morning skate, it'll be right there, ready to go, 1 click away, boom. When you're done with it, you'll be all informed, ready to go, ready to attack the day. So make sure that you do subscribe to all of our shows. You read our articles. Make sure that you click and you subscribe into the morning skate. You will not be disappointed. Isn't that right?
Lots of great content on the hockey writers. Tons of great content coming out all the time.
All the time. So let's transition now to part 2 here, and got some really interesting things coming up over the weekend. Actually, on Saturday in particular, the big thing that's going to come out of it, of course, is Rick Nash. And they're going to put his number 61 in the rafters at Nationwide Arena, becoming the first Blue Jacket to have his number retired. And listen, could not be more well-deserved. And the way that the team has handled everything is to be commended. But, for someone who's followed the Blue Jackets as long as I have, I always wondered how this was going to work, going back to the way that the trade happened and the circumstances that led to it, and maybe some hard feelings that were there, to the fact that he's now back in the organization. the legacy that he just has. We could be here for hours talking about what 61 has meant to the Blue Jackets, what he will mean to the Blue Jackets going forward. So I guess I'll just ask you, before we go out to Twitter here, what are some of the memories that you have when you think of the name Rick Nash?
Honestly, the one that really comes to my mind is that goal against Phoenix.
Absolutely.
Yep. Wow. Just size, skill, speed, just brilliant finesse, all on display in that one. That's my number one.
Did you know that right before that goal, and this is where I think a lot of fans, the diehards will remember this for sure, but he actually was the one that took the penalty where the Coyotes scored to tie the game before he did that. Yeah.
So that's leadership too.
That's
on display,
leadership.
Coming back.
Yep. And that's who he was. He was listen, I'll just say he's Mr. Blue Jacket. Everything that he's done, he's in all the record books for the Blue Jackets. What more can you say? Community leader, on the ice, off the ice. He was the one that came in at a time when the Blue Jackets absolutely had to have a face of the franchise. And if you recall too, the Blue Jackets did not win that lottery in that draft lottery. They actually traded up from 3-1 to get him back when Doug McLean was the general manager. So it's one of the best moves. I know McLean gets a lot of flack, deservedly so, but one of the best things he did was to pull off that trade to get Rick Nash. They needed that guy. He embraced it, did everything that he could. And if those diehards that remember when they first clinched that playoff spot against Chicago, to see what he was able to do to he put Columbus on the map. And for me, obviously there's a lot of guys who were in the early going that were part of the inaugural team and those that were responsible for getting the team there, but to actually put them on the map, to put a little respect around them, even though there were some really dark times around the Blue Jackets, he was the one that embraced it. He embraced Columbus. And to me, for my money, the obvious thing to do is to retire his number here, and so that his legacy lasts forever, because he had an impact then, he's having an impact now, and he's going to have an impact in the future.
I would say still to this day, if you ask someone, name me a Columbus Blue Jacket, Rick Nash is the name that you'll get back more often than not.
Yep. 100%.
So, very deserved.
Yes, let's go to Twitter real quick. I took out there, I wanted some fans to give me some of their favorite memories of Rick Nash. And I'm just going to read a couple of these real quick. And I appreciate those that chimed in here. Madigan O'Brien, I want a very faithful Blue Jackets follower. So thank you for sharing this. This is a cool story. So back in November 2009 was their first ever game, and it was her 8th birthday. And for her 8th birthday, she got to go to that game. She got a birthday pack from Stinger, and she shared the picture on Twitter. And it had a signed birthday card from Rick Nash and Matt Calvert. And that was the reason why she is a fan to this day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Speaks to the Blue Jackets organization too.
It does. So that it made her a fan. And now 14 years, basically, well, a little bit under 14 years after that it's still strong like this. It just shows everything you need to know about the team and Nash. And so we got Ernie Morris saying too many to name one favorite. I remember watching the goal, like you just mentioned. He was live though. He was actually at the game.
Oh, wow.
And then he said many don't recall the penalty he took, which we just talked about. Curtis Deems says his immediate impact immediately is one of the most physical players on the team, yet one of the most talented. He made a difference the right way at 18 years old. Is there a current Blue Jacket that's 18 years old that we know of, Nick?
Yeah, one. There's one.
Yeah, absolutely. Coleman Groove comes in, and it's at Two Wheels of Change, says the 3-0 game when he scored all 3 goals against the Red Wings. That's going to live down in a lot of fans' memories for sure. So thank you for that. And then I think someone, at Finish NHL F4N, so it's fan except it's the number 4. Very nice. and it's Samuli, and he says that goal, of course. But it
Mhm.
said, is it possible to hear your take on should the Blue Jackets keep Roslovic since he's been better lately? We talked about that earlier, but the answer is I think that we agree that he
Yeah.
should be given a bit more of a chance there. So let me see if there are any others that have come in with this. And it's Cody Chow fans, because I can't remember the specific goal, but when he scored the first hockey goal that he ever saw, and he was like 5 or 6 years old when it happened. Chris at CP Fro 3 says being at our bar when Nash scored against Chicago in the playoffs. All that. Could you imagine being at that bar when they clinched that playoff berth? Just how much celebration that there would have been.
Wow.
Obviously a huge moment in franchise history for them. But yeah, just his legacy, and we could be here for hours talking about him, and he deserves every moment of it. Saturday night's going to be incredible. If you're going to be at the game, be in your seat by 5:30 so that everything runs smoothly. The doors are going to open at 5 o'clock. So going to be a wonderful night. I'm actually going to have a piece on Rick Nash out on Saturday morning on game day for you all to be able to read. So look out for that. But really, we're going to celebrate his legacy that he continues to have to this day. And it's just great that he gets that opportunity now.
And also Nick Foligno back. That's going to be a very emotional night. Mark's going to cry, tears down his face. No, you're staying strong.
No,
no crying in the press box.
There is no crying. There is no cheering. That's them's the rules, Nick.
Sorry.
No, there will be a lot of emotions in the stands for sure, because right, you mentioned that kind of the undercard in all this is the former captain Nick Foligno coming back to Nationwide Arena and possibly being able to watch this ceremony. If he's going to come out, or if he's going to be part of a ceremonial puck drop, who knows at this point. But yeah, it's the first time back since the trade to the Maple Leafs, and he's a member of the Boston Bruins. When you think of Nick Foligno, what do you think of, Nick?
I think he's kind of a less skill kind of version of Rick Nash, if that makes sense. He brings a lot of the same qualities in terms of leadership, and he's also on the wing, which is something. But blue collar guy was definitely what the team needed in a captain at the time. And he was very underrated, I think, from a league perspective. Because if a lot of the casual fans looked at the depth chart on a night-to-night basis, you'd see him usually in the middle six. But he still brought a lot more to the ice every night than what you would see on the stat sheet.
But man, when you needed skill, especially when kind of during his prime when he was with the Blue Jackets, he provided. And I say to this day, of all the biggest goals in Blue Jackets history, one of the more underrated ones was scored by him, the 3-1 goal in Game 1 in the Tampa sweep. Remember when they were down 3-0 after the first period? Bobrovsky had to make a huge save at the beginning of the second, and then Foligno got that breakaway. And he beat Vasilevsky and looked at the bench and said, come on, guys, we've got this. We have an opportunity here. That's what a captain does. And he embodied everything that the Blue Jackets were about. I remember even Tort saying that he didn't think that he could lose captain material, but every interaction I ever had with him, just a first-class professional, a giant in the community, and somebody that eventually, should be remembered in Blue Jackets history for a long time. And he might come back, once his playing career is over, he might come back into the organization, kind of similar to the way Rick Nash has. And I think that that's something that needs to be celebrated in Columbus, being able to have the important players in their history be able to still contribute in a way like Nash is now. Like, he's kind of the one that is the advocate for Columbus and telling, how good it is to be in Columbus and what kind of a market it can be. The fact that Nash is still devoting his life to the betterment of the team, that's what Nick Foligno was all about. And I think eventually Cam Atkinson could be in that same boat too. So it's certainly going to be an emotional night, and there could be a moment, if there's that ceremonial puck drop, where you have the former captain, a former captain, and the current captain at center ice taking a ceremonial puck drop. There might not be very many dry eyes in the seats, because I don't know how many people thought that they would ever see that moment where this would be happening at Nationwide Arena. So Saturday night's going to be very, very special, not only for Nash, but for Nick Foligno as well.
I saw someone post in one of the groups on the Blue Jacket groups that they were looking for tickets for Saturday night because of it's their kid's birthday or something. I was like, ooh, that's going to be a hot ticket to get.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I haven't heard. I would assume it's sold out. I've not officially heard that, but you would think that it would be a Saturday night in March, when I think I saw the weather was supposed to be in the 70s that day. So yeah, that'll be a very tough ticket to get, but it's going to be an incredible night. So yeah, good stuff coming there. I understand that you have the lightning round.
Yes, I've got a little lightning round. We're going to keep it quick, although I will throw this out there to anyone listening. If you have any ideas of what to call the lightning round, because I think it's weird that we refer to the lightning round as something that the Tampa Bay Lightning, that correlation there. If there's like a canon connection that you got, tweet at Mark Scheig. He can handle that. I don't want to deal with it, but I think it's a great idea.
I'll forward it to you. Don't worry about it.
So we got a couple of weeks coming up here before the trade deadline. And this is normally when moves start happening, is a week or two before the deadline. So we're going to do trade deadline. Will they trade them? Should they trade them? We're going to have to keep it quick because producer Matt's going to be mad at us for going so long today. Okay. Most of these guys are in the last year of their deals, except for Gustav Nyquist. Should they trade him? Will they trade him?
Should they? I think a couple weeks ago I would have said they should. Now I say no. I think he stays. I think they should not trade him.
And you don't think they will trade him?
I do not think they'll trade him. No.
Okay. Yeah, I'm no and no on Nyquist as well. Max Domi, should they trade him? Will they trade him before the deadline?
Yes and yes. And I just, it comes down to, I think someone's going to step up enough to meet the price there. Yarmo, remember, he got a first for Savard and for Foligno, and Domi can really provide someone's middle six on a contender with an extra push. So yeah, I think that they should and will.
Yes and yes on him as well. Let's keep going. We talked about it earlier. Jack Roslovic, should they, will they?
Should they? No. Will they? I'm leaning no, but I still think that there's a chance that it could happen. Maybe if not by the deadline, over the summer, but I still would lean no. What about you?
I'm going no and no on Roslovic. Let's keep it going. Emil Bemstrom, should they, will they trade him by the deadline?
By the deadline, no. By the deadline, no. But you want to talk about a player that's got some pressure on him, that would be the guy, because he really needs to continue, because there's guys knocking on the door and he needs to show that he belongs.
All right, let's get into some of these guys who've actually come out a little bit this year. Brendan Gaunce, he had a pretty strong showing for a little bit there. Should they trade him? Will they trade him?
Should they trade him? No, because I think that he could, he's been effective with the Blue Jackets, but he can also be effective in Cleveland too. And there's something to be said about having good players on the Monsters too, to be able to help with the development there. So I say no and no.
They should, if they can get something for him, for my opinion, but I don't think they will. Okay. Justin Danforth, he had a really strong international career. He's come across this year. Do you think a team should take a flyer on him?
I think teams should call, but I think the Blue Jackets should say no, because he's been one of the ones that's been really good as of late, very noticeable, can impact the game in a lot of ways. I don't think they should entertain that right now.
Okay. I'm no and no on Danforth. Dean Kukin, is he gone? Should he be gone?
2 weeks ago, that's a yes. Now he's played really well, and I wonder if there's a chance they re-sign him as a depth piece. So I would say, should they trade him? If they get the right return, will they trade him? Oh, that could really go either way, but I'll say no because I think they might actually entertain trying to bring him back.
I think he's 28, and I think he should be. I think they should ship him out, just with the current landscape of things. So I'm yes and yes on I'm yes on him, but I don't think they will trade him. And then let's do JF, our last one. Or no, we're gonna do Corpy too. So JF, should they trade him? Will they trade him?
If they can get something for him, I think that they should try. Tarasov being in the organization, but will they? That's kind of you're going to Korpisalo, so I'll say no. They probably will not trade Berube.
Do you think he's a guy who's turned any heads with his performance in the last week, or is it just kind of under the radar?
Such a small sample size to really say that that's definitive. It's obviously good that he did that, and some people catch attention, but depending all in 4 games is dangerous water. But I think he definitely deserves a chance for sure.
Okay. And then, we'll close it with our boy who we've been looking at for a very long time, Jonas Korpisalo.
Will it ever end, right? Should they trade him? Yes. Will they? Yeah, I think somebody will eventually step up. I think they're waiting for the market to kind of settle in, maybe see if the prices come down a little bit. There's other options that are out there. They have to try. So yes and yes.
I think they should trade him. I don't know if there's many suitors out there for him. So I think the market has turned against him. I put out a piece on it this week if you want to check it out, but I don't know. I'm a maybe on if he actually does get traded.
Yeah, no, it's great. It can, and I'll have a piece actually coming out probably sometime next week as we start to wrap up getting toward that trade deadline. And turns out the Blue Jackets are becoming one of the ultimate wild cards because of the number of directions that they can go. We know what their plan is in a sense of it's a reset, they know where they're heading, but what are they going to do at the deadline? There's more than one path to being good at this. And that's what we're going to talk about. So stay tuned for that. Nick, great job this week. Fans, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us, listen to us. Got the Kings, got the Bruins, got the Maple Leafs. It's a big homestand here with only a couple road games. There's a 9 out of 11 stretch that they're in, where they get games in Nationwide Arena, and there's a little bit of a playoff race. So great opportunity here. Saturday's going to be incredible for Nash and Foligno. So glad that you took the time to join us. Hope you'll have a great week. We'll be back next week. We'll see you here next time on Union Junction. Take care.